So the better choices you make in life, typically the better your life is. I don't think there's anything particularly profound about that idea, but how do you make good choices, and how over the course of your life do you make better and better choices? Let's figure it out. My friend Randy served in the Air Force for quite a while, and for several years he was captain of the Hurricane Hunters, which means he would literally fly an airplane into a hurricane, which is a bit insane, but he really enjoyed it. And he was flying to these hurricanes to get all sorts of research and data and information to help meteorologists figure out which way the hurricane is going, how fast is it moving, where is it going to hit land, all that kind of thing to help people, stay safe and not be inside their homes when their homes were blown away. And he had just amazing stories about flying these airplanes into these storms. He would talk about, the plane would get struck by lightning and what that would do. He would talk about how you'd look out on the wing in these high stress situations and you would start seeing things that may or may not have been there when your brain, your mind might be playing some tricks on you. And he would also talk about flying into these storms, into these hurricanes at, 2 o'clock in the morning when it's just pitch black dark outside and you're looking out the windshield, you can't see anything, it's pouring down rain anyway, and you really don't quite know where you are, so you have to look at your dashboard. You have to look at all the different instruments and gauges in your dash to figure out, okay, are we headed in the right direction? Are we upside down? Are we headed straight to the ocean? Are we gonna, hit the ocean floor? And he would talk about how you would use those gauges and those instruments to figure out where to fly in and around as you would make your way through the storm into the eye of the hurricane. And he just had some amazing stories about doing that, and it was so cool to hear him talk about it. But a while back I was really thinking about the idea of the gauges, about how in life a lot of times we're flying and it feels like we're in the dark and we're not exactly sure if we're flying in the right direction or if we're upside down, or are we flying right to our demise. And you have to have really good gauges in life to make sure you're on the right path. And if you end up off that right path, that those gauges kind of help you get back to the right direction that you want to be going in. And it's something I feel like a lot of people don't think about. I know I didn't think about it for a long time, years and years and years. I was just kind of floating through life, trying to figure things out, trying to do the best I could, but I had never really defined what my gauges were. And even the things that I kind of knew, I never really sat down and thought, okay, it's this, it's this, it's this. These are the things, these are the people that I'm going to go to, that I'm going to listen to, that I'm going to read and whatever to figure out, am I on the right path? Am I traveling down the road in life that I really want to be on, that I really feel like is the direction I need to be going in? And so my question is, have you thought about it? Have you thought about what your gauges are in life to figure out, am I going in the right direction? Am I upside down? Am I headed straight to the ocean, straight at the ground? And if you hadn't really thought about it, let's think through what those gauges are, what they might be, and what they should be. For me, my faith is a big one, as a wonderful gauge where I can look at my life and compare it to a higher standard and look at scripture and different things and go, okay, here's where I want to be, the type of person that I want to be, and here's kind of where I'm at. And so how can I bridge that gap? My friend Randy, I was just talking about, was an incredible mentor, coach, friend. Anytime I had issues or had questions or ideas about life or marriage or raising kids or business or leadership or buying a house or any of that kind of stuff, he was a phenomenal person I could go to because he had so much just life experience and different stories and different ways to kind of help me see things from new angles, different angles. And up until he passed away, he was just an awesome gauge in my life. My wife is phenomenal in being able to say, hey, here's where I'm at and here's what I'm thinking. And she sees the real me. I think it's so important to have people in your life that will tell you the truth and that see who you really are, not just the person that you project out into social media or into, whatever you're trying to act like you're somebody that you're not, whatever. You need people that know the real you, that can act as a gauge and say, hey, I'm seeing these things. I'm seeing you travel down a road. I'm seeing you veer off the path. I'm seeing you, maybe you're finding yourself in a place, because you might not even realize it. A lot of times you start veering off the right direction. It's one step at a time. very rarely do we take these giant leaps into really bad, really ugly things. It's one small step a day, and then you just kind of slowly over time end up in a pretty rough place. And so my wife is phenomenal in all things, whether it's making YouTube videos or anything I'm doing creatively, or anything with my kids, or anything where she can go, hey, I'm noticing this, and I can also just go to her and say, what do you think of this? And sometimes she feels weird. She'll say, I feel kind of bad because I'm about to give you some bad news. I'm going to give you some feedback where this is not as good as it could be. And she kind of gets, weird and emotional about it. And it's like, no, I need this. I need you to be this person that will look me in the face and tell me the actual truth. That way I can fix things, figure things out, make things better. And so she's an awesome gauge. Then I have a handful of friends that I can go to and say, hey, here's what I'm doing. Here's what I'm thinking. Here's what I got going on, and they'll be honest with me. They'll tell me the truth, and they'll help me figure things out. And then when they have issues, I try to act as a gauge for them, that I tell them the truth. And, again, you're not trying to be hurtful or say things in a way that it make people feel bad or anything, but you're just telling them the truth. And they know you care. I know that they care. And so I'll listen. For a long time, I would see things on social media, and it would affect me, right? Where maybe if someone made a comment that was kind of negative or derogatory or offensive, and it would bother me. And a lot of times we'll see things online and it just hangs on us. It sticks with us for days. It just lives rent free in our minds. Or we do something and it doesn't get any or very many likes or comments, or we're not getting very many followers or whatever. And a lot of times we'll let social media sway us and cause us to make different choices or to change what we're doing, and it'll cause us to kind of maybe veer off the path that we need to be on, because we're allowing social media to be a gauge when it probably shouldn't be. Allowing our lives to be dictated by strangers on the internet, probably not the best way to live, but a lot of times we get wrapped up in it. But I think it's mainly because we don't specify what our gauges are. We don't sit down and just write it down or think through, okay, who are the people in my life that I truly listen to that are going to really affect me, and what's not, right? To think through, okay, I'm not going to let Twitter determine my day. I'm not going to let Instagram determine which path I'm going to take in life, and just thinking through that. Because when I say that, it sounds obvious, but I feel like, I know personally, I feel like a lot of other people in general, when you don't think through it and you don't define it, a lot of times you just kind of naturally default into it. It's very similar to what I was talking about in my last video, where a lot of times people don't define what winning is, and then they wonder why they feel like they're always losing. But if you haven't been very specific about it, about the parameters of what winning is, or what your actual gauges are, a lot of times our brains will just default to the lowest common denominator, and that is never good and definitely not healthy. And it's not even just the negative comments, because a lot of times we'll see things that are really, really positive, or people being very encouraging, again, strangers on the internet, but it'll cause us to get a little too puffed up, a little maybe too much pride, thinking we're better than we really are, or I don't really need to get better. Look at all these people telling me how great I am. And that's also unhealthy. It's also kind of dangerous and can send you off of your path, right? And so thinking through, okay, I'm not going to let this stuff affect me negatively or positively. I'm not going to trust anything other than the select group of gauges that I've set up in my life, these people, these different things, and then that's what I'm going to listen to. Not that you don't want positive comments and encouragement and things like that, but it's not going to overly affect you in your decision making and the choices that you're making and things that you are going to do. And then I also have different books and podcasts and YouTube channels and things I go to, places I turn for ideas and advice, and just trying to figure out, okay, where am I going? Where am I? Where am I going? Where do I want to go? How do I get there? And there's all sorts of stuff. It doesn't necessarily have to be all people in your life that know you specifically, as an actual relationship. That's obviously, I think, the better option. But it can also be just people online, people that you've never met before, people that you look up to, that you think through, okay, I want to be, I want that kind of a life. I want to be that type of a person. Okay, this is how they're doing it, and then you can kind of figure some things out. Now, you can't trust all of that, because again, everything we project online is to a certain degree false. I mean, me sitting here right now talking to you, these things, you're gonna see this video and think, oh man, Gabe's got it all together. I do not. I do not. Every day is a challenge. Every day is me just trying to figure out, okay, how's this plane staying in the air, and can I just keep it in the air one more day, and can I keep it from flipping upside down? Can I keep it from getting struck by lightning? It's a million things going on all the time. But even that being said, you can go online and find places and find different people, find forums and spaces that have lots of people maybe going through the same kind of thing. If you're a creative person, find other people that are creative in your field, and then kind of work together and use each other as gauges, right? To say, hey, here's the thing I'm working on. What do y'all think? And they give you feedback and they give you criticism and they try to help you and you try to help them. And again, you're not like buddy best friends or anything, but they're helping you figure things out. They're acting as a gauge, and your gauges are gonna change. You might be watching this realizing that you need some better gauges. You need some better friends. You need some better people in your life. You need some better things in your life to help you figure out, where am I going, and how do I stay on the path, going in the right direction? How do I flip this thing back over? And so, I think that's always going to happen as you go through life. Again, you lose people for whatever reason. Sometimes people come in for a reason or a season, and then they go right back out of your life, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just life. So I think you're always going to have to make adjustments and tweaks and figure out, okay, what's best for me right now, where I'm at. But I also think it's helpful for you to be a gauge for other people. I know one of the greatest fulfillments of my life is when I can help someone else, and they reach out to me and they say, hey, I'm working on this thing. What are your thoughts? Or they say, hey, I'm struggling with this issue in my marriage or with my kids or whatever. Have you dealt with that? What do you advise on that? And I don't have all the answers. I'm not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but being able to be a gauge for that other person helps me re-gauge, re-figure out some things going on in my life. The old saying is the best way to learn something is to teach it. Like, that's the best way to figure something out for yourself, is having to help somebody else with it. And so what are some ways you can be a gauge for other people? But the big question is, what are your gauges? Who are the people in your life? What are the things in your life that help you make good choices? And how are you improving those things so that you can make better and better choices as time goes by? Because life is super challenging, and sometimes, maybe even a lot of times, it feels like it's 2 a.m., you're flying in the dark, you're going into a hurricane, and if you don't have good gauges, it's not going to go well. So I just want to challenge you. Think through, what are your gauges, and then how can you make those gauges better over time? Because the better your gauges are, the better your choices will be, and then overall, the better life will be.